Welcome to KJ TV, and I want to welcome our panelists. We are going to talk about the legacy of late Dr. John Pombe Magufuli, who died this week, the president of Tanzania. And here we have Jimmy Junda. Jimmy lives in Chicago right now. He's in, you are in Minneapolis, right?
Correct.
And it comes from Tanzania, actually from Kagera. So Pole sana, Jimmy, for losing your president. Then we have Dr. Gerard Ondimu, who is from Minneapolis here. And then we have Dr. Charles Choti. And my name is Josh Omandi. I welcome you to the studio.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Now, as a protocol, let us observe a minute of silence for the foreign hero of Africa, Dr. John Pombe Magufuli. Thank you. Yeah, in honoring John Pombe Magufuli, I want to give you each a minute, first of all, to pass each one to pass your condolence. I will start with you, Jimmy.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks. Thanks, Dr. Omandi. Thanks for having us and for having this platform to discuss his legacy. I think it's really a sad day for Tanzania, sad day for East Africa, and overall, it's a sad day for the entire continent of Africa. I think we have lost a hero, a true patriotic person who really, really loved Tanzania, Tanzanians people, and actually loved all Africans. So I think it's a sad day for the continent.
Thank you, Dr. Ndim.
Yes, thank you very much for having us again. The loss of Dr. John Pombe Magufuli is like losing a part of you, even though I've never met him, I just listened to him over several medias. We have lost a person in the mold of Kwame Nkrumah, the mold of Patrice Lumumba, in the mold of those the founding fathers of Africa. It's really a very sad month for Africa, not just Tanzanians, but for Africans, and not only in the continent of Africa, but also the diaspora, wherever we are at.
Okay, thank you very much. Dr. Choti?
Thank you, Dr. Omandi, for this very important session. And I also want to personally convey my deepest condolences to the people of Tanzania for losing their president, the people of East Africa, and the entire continent. It appears that Magufuli made very positive impressions, especially in his country. And this one is very visible, the way the people have reacted and responded to his passing on. It looks that his leadership touched many people's hearts and imaginations, particularly his pro-people ideology. It looks that in spite of other human weaknesses, his legacy is strong and is likely to remain in place for many years to come. And it is a loss to Africa, it's a loss to East Africa. And we hope that God will keep the spirits of our people in Tanzania high.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, as we debate about the death of Magufuli, people are ambivalent, and everybody's entitled to his own opinion. And quoting Charles Abugri, who said that dead politicians are different things to different people. Both they are good and they are wrong, divine their goalposts, and hence the playing field upon which the survivors take their position in society, which is okay. Their good is usurped, their failures exhumed and magnified as appropriate. But we have to take lessons. Now, we want to be candid and honest. And first of all, we would like really to get the view from Jimmy, who lost the president and who comes from Tanzania country, to tell us about what is the leadership legacy of Magufuli.
Okay, yep, thanks for this opportunity again. So I think I want to say that as the president, as a politician, you're right, you will always have people who like you and you have people who dislike you. And as a human being, you always have weaknesses. So there's no question that he may have had weaknesses, but the true intentions that Magufuli had for his people and for his country are unquestionable. Now, this is the man who took the country at the point where inflation was rising, when literally everything was going backwards. Corruption in Tanzania was extremely high at that point, but he decided to turn it around and build a lot of infrastructure, tried to really combat corruption to the point where literally the country now was moving towards the right direction. And the sad part is we don't know with his departure whether most of these projects that he had initiated and the cause of the cause of the country where he was steering towards, whether that will continue. So I think, I guess to summarize this, and I'll open it up to other members of this this discussion, is that we can all debate how he handled democracy. We can all debate how he handled coronavirus. We can all debate how he handled freedom of press. But I don't think anybody can debate his true intentions, his purpose for the country, and his love for the country and the Africans.
Okay, thank you very much. What is your take, Dr. Ndimu?
Actually, Jimmy just summarized it very highly. I'll start with the very positive pieces that we have admired him for. Like he mentioned earlier on, Dr. Pombe Magufuli had the good, the ugly, and the bad. Yeah. Let's go with the good fact, because the good is, I think, is more than the ugly, I would say. The fact that he brought back what we call nationalistic patriotism feelings to the people of Tanzania. Not only Tanzania, actually it went beyond the borders of Tanzania, where he made so many people to be proud of who they are. Because I remember back probably 2017, there was a hashtag, what will Magufuli
do?
And that was in Kenya.
Yeah.
What will Magufuli do? It was just trending all over. It kind of resonated with his anti-corruption tendency, which was very, very strong.
Yeah.
He pulled away from the normal way of life where Africans are known to be corrupt. But he stood firm and said, not anymore. That's number one. Number two, efficiency. He will ever be known for his efficiency. He wanted it done and done right and done now.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's no buts or ifs or anything. That I think will be one of his legacies. He wants it done right, efficiently, and now, and not tomorrow, and no buts or ifs. That's one of them. I'll let maybe maybe my colleague there to add some additional ones for the good first.
Okay. Jatu, what is your take?
I appreciate what has been said by my colleagues, and Africans normally they usually respect the dead people, and when we talk about them, we tend to target the positives. I agree. Personally, I was in Tanzania the day when Dr. John Pombe Magufuli was elected president. I had gone to visit my brother in a small town, rural town known as Muto Wambo. And I saw the excitement. People were very excited.
Yeah.
And his election was like a new dawn in that country. And let us also remember that at that point, the leadership of Kikwete, people were not very excited about it. It was at its lowest point. Economically, the economy wasn't doing very well. The entire tenure of the former president, I thought that people didn't very much talk positively about it. So it was excitement all over the country. And also there is this givity of the charisma. Magufuli was extremely charismatic. Actually, you could easily compare to the first president of that country, Julius Nyerere.
Okay. When
he talks, he can easily unify. He unified the people. Very much he unified the people. And also, as I said earlier, he was completely pro-Tanzanians. We could say that he put Tanzania first. You could compare him in that slogan. You can easily compare him to the former president of US, Trump. But that is where they meet.
Yeah, that's where they meet.
because Magufuli was a man who was full of humility. He was a man full of humanity, and you could see that he loved his people genuinely. And one thing you can't doubt was his intentions were good. He meant well for his people. And though there were other areas where he somehow didn't embrace, especially in the side of, let me touch one issue which came earlier on, when he especially the issue of the girl child.
Yeah.
That aspect of saying that once a school girl becomes pregnant and then that is the end of her education. I think that was not good progressive idea. And I'm sure that the world and even especially the human rights and the gender movements, they responded equally. That was not a good idea, especially in the 21st century, because people have to be allowed to be given space to realize their potential. That was a bad policy. And there are others also which we can look at, especially the democratic space in Tanzania, especially towards the election time. Recently, Tanzania had an election which was quite controversial to some extent, and the opposition was not able to freely campaign. Media was extremely controlled, and those are some of the areas which didn't bring Magufuli out very well. But as we said earlier, his nationalistic approach, people-centered leadership, touched the imaginations of the Tanzanian people. And you can see the way they have reacted with shock, grief, and they are genuinely going to miss President Magufuli.
Yeah, and I wanted us to touch on corruption. And actually, I can say his presidency it was more of an accidental president because of corruption. Lowassa, who was almost like an heir apparent after Kikwete, was involved with a scandal and he had to resign. And then when they were, Chama cha Mapinduzi was looking for a candidate, actually he was a compromise candidate. He was a man who was not attached to politics so much. And when they were deciding who to take, then they gave him, and he had already succeeded. He had earned a very good respect that he was corrupt free, even when he was a minister for public works, and that's when he did all this. Now, do you think his handling of opposition was the only, maybe that was the only way he could drive his agenda of fighting corruption in Tanzania? Jimmy.
Yeah, so that's a good point, and your facts are well aligned there, and they're correct. He became president by chance. Himself until today, until his death, he said he didn't know if he was going to become the president, right? He just took the form, just trying his luck, because everybody thought Lowassa was going to be made the next heir of that chair. Then, obviously, as luck would have it, he became the president. For him, trying to suppress political activities during the first 5 years before the election, at least what he told us, and I don't know why he did it behind the scene, but was that the election was over. He wanted people to focus on working because he had his own slogan of Hapa Kazi too, which is like, all we have to do is work, forget about politics. The election is over. We're not electing anybody in the next 5 years. No political rallies in the next 5 years until the next election. So that's at least his reasoning. He may have been wrong, but he may also have been right. I think you look at where we are, right, as an African continent or an African nation in Tanzania, people are really extremely poor, whereby all these political rallies and actions, which really tend to benefit the few, the political leaders, right? Like the Chadema leaders are extremely rich, getting all these money from the government and really just using it for their personal gains, and many other political parties. I think sometimes, given where we are as a nation or as a continent, I think democracy is good to have, but you cannot entertain democracy a lot. Sometimes you need to really put your feet down and get the work done and get the job done and deal with the democracy and other things later. I mean, obviously he was challenged for that, and that's one of the red dots he has gone with. But I think when people and historians in the future look back, they may have said this guy was right. I mean, the country is too poor. Africa is still too poor. America is here 300 years later. That's why we have this democracy. But we are, I don't know, 50 years in. Maybe we need work first before this politics work. So that. I think that's my take for now.
If I may respond quickly before I forget on what is asked, and then we can say that Magufuli was more of a he was so personalistic. He was personal. Most of the issues he brought his personality into national policy, and what comes out. I mean, a lot of people have weaknesses, strengths. I think he comes out like somebody who had a sense of insecurity. He didn't like the opposition. You know, there are people naturally who don't like to be challenged. So and in a way, you could see the way he repressed the media, firmly controlled the media, and then the opposition also. Actually, the campaign his opponent, Tundu
Lissu.
Yes, Tundu Lissu. He had problems. He couldn't appear on TV. He wasn't covered by the mainstream media. And he had so many challenges, actually. That was not necessary. When you fight corruption, which he meant well, Magufuli meant well, the war against corruption was good. And it remains one of his major legacies. But again, you should also entrench institutions. You cannot invest a war or a national fight against something on people or on a person. You should have worked to strengthen anti-corruption institutions. And one of the institutions is actually the opposition, because the opposition plays a role in public management. They check the government, the excesses of the government. That is how you balance situations. But I think, so in a way, his leadership undermines democracy to a large extent. And I think historians will come to tell us later. Normally, historians who come later, much later after somebody has gone, they are in a better position to analyze and reflect on one's actions. So that was, I think, will remain one of Magufuli's greatest weaknesses. He undermined democracy, and instead of advancing multi-party democracy, he didn't come out well on that.
Absolutely, I do agree with you to a certain extent, but also want to remind ourselves that democracy is very noisy. Democracy is messy. There's no one single country that has come out on the top of perfect democracy. Successful democracies and successful nations have been able to develop when they have had somebody who is very strong. Take Singapore, for example. When they took over in 1950, there was the founding father who was very, very autocratic, but in the right direction. So I agree in this 21st century that he was more like high-handed in the way he was handling the opposition. But at the same time, Africans are tough-headed people. They are tough-headed. Unless you are tough, you can't get things done.
Yeah.
Especially corruption. If you are not tough, it swallows you very fast, very quickly. So I think we need to balance this thing out and look at those who have become successful. Somehow, the high-handedness in a positive way develops the country and brings out the best of that country. So I want to give him the benefit of the doubt that he was high-handed, not because he meant to repress them, but because he meant for the greater good of the nation.
That's very true. And let us take a man who at one time we said the man of influence in Africa, the first man, who is Kwame Nkrumah. When Kwame Nkrumah came to power, remember he had to kill people for corruption. He shot people, and then people got scared. They say this man is going to kill us. That's how he fought corruption in Ghana. So as you said about Singapore, even in South Korea, that's what President Park did. He was high-handedness, and see where South Korea is. South Korea was a poor country. Now, as we move, what do we expect on that issue of corruption? Which actually, Magufuli himself was corrupt-free, and he had fought corruption. But he has left no institution to fight corruption. What should the next president do about that?
Yeah, I think I'll take that first, then I'll let my fellow here panelists jump in. I think, number one, everybody here is correct. He did not have strong institutions. People feared Magufuli as a person. Like, people are terrified by that guy. That's why even in his deathbed, nobody could come out publicly and say he's sick, because everybody's like thinking, if this guy wakes up and he comes out and I was out there saying he's sick, he's either going to fire me, he's going to do something to me. So they were really scared of Magufuli. So now then comes obviously Samia, who is laid back. You know, now you wonder, will people be scared of her in the same likes as they were scared by Magufuli? Probably not. So people may start slowly going back to those practices because they really didn't have any strong institutions. Unfortunately, he did not strengthen the parliament. He did not strengthen, and this is the unfortunate part, he did not strengthen the court, because he kind of controlled both. He would call the speaker of the parliament and ask them to do something. He would call the judges, ask them to do something, and they all bowed to him. So you don't have independent court, you don't have independent parliament, then obviously you're not going to run the country forward. But again, going back to the fact that maybe those are the things that he really needed them to do to move the country forward, because Kikwete, on the contrary, he was a very democratic president who allowed freedom of speech. He allowed democracy. He allowed everything, but he could barely do anything because he was blocked by either the opposition or other medias on everything he wanted to do. But Magufuli was at a point where if he decided, I'm building this bridge, I don't care whether I have the parliament to approve it or not, he's moving forward. If he says, I'm going to bring down Barrick Gold, the company that was stealing gold from Tanzania, he didn't care whether the opposition was saying, oh, we are going to be sued by the international court, we are going to do this. He didn't care. He pursued forward. He came out successfully. So sometimes I think to move forward, at least in the conditions we are now, you may need to rule with that iron fist for a little bit. Then once I think you have the country to a place where it's really in good shape, like now in America, you can waste 2 months debating things, but I think when you are really poor, you don't really have that much time and luxury to do that.
Yes, very quickly, I agree with what my colleague has said, but I want also to add quickly that Tanzania's past leaders, right from Nyerere, and then you have the likes of Mwinyi, there was Mukaba and Kikwete. There is a certain display of humility and people oriented, and they don't they are not very materialistic minded. You can't compare Tanzanian leadership to the Kenyan leadership, which is driven by material, corruption, and all that. They tend to lead simple lives. They tend to put more emphasis on the welfare of their people. Probably they have not extremely succeeded the way they could have wanted. But I think going forward, there is this aspect of person-oriented kind of politics. I suggest they concentrate more on building institutions, empowering institutions, so that the law drives what people do, what the policies they want to achieve, and also be a bit open. Let us have open societies. Like now, when Magufuli was sick for several weeks, Tanzanians didn't know what was happening.
Yeah.
The international community was not aware of what is happening in Tanzania. There's nothing mysterious. There's nothing strange for a president to be sick, to be unwell, to be hospitalized. I think these are some of the simple things we can adjust in Africa also. We should be more accountable to the people. Our people, we should not treat our people as if they cannot be able to control the situations. Let us trust people. Let us empower our people. Let us trust our people with public information.
Thank you.
And I think that's, to me, is the way forward.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Ndim.
Yeah, I completely agree with Dr. Choti. Not to berate that point of saying that for us to be at a certain level where we are able to determine our own, we can empower the people with all the way we want.
Yeah.
We can give them all we want. But if we cannot root out that corruption, and remember this, corruption is not going to go away unless somebody has this big fist, a big window to knock it out. So that's one thing I like about it. And to bring you back to whether it will continue or not, I have been doing some pre-research about Samia Suluhu, the lady who has become a president by accident equally. And she also became a vice president by accident at the same time. And she has a very humble background, hugely humble. And she's very honest. When you listen to her speak, she's very honest and genuine. And she acknowledges that she is not the strongest. She acknowledges that she became who she is by the hand of God. But there is one thing that I read about her, which intuitively tells me that we might be underrating who she is. She's going to be a very strong woman president. That Tanzania would say, thank God we had her immediately following a strong-handed man. I don't know, but maybe Jimmy can tell us. That lady
before that, there is something you tagged there, which also which caught my eyes. The background. Our background is very humble background. Actually, I listened to. I think she was addressing some young students. I listened to her speech, where she gave a brief background of how she came up, even educationally, and all that. I think her background and the humility is very inspiring. And the Gari child in Tanzania, at last they have found somebody they can
look up to. Okay.
I think she brings in something that I think Tanzania needs, because for the past all of these years we have had about 5 or 4 presidents. All of them are male presidents. Now, all of a sudden, we have a woman, a lady, dignified, very humble, speaking the language of the people, the commoners, from a very humblest background. That is a plus for Tanzania.
That's good. Jimmy, tell us about Samia.
I'll tell you a little bit. First of all, we call her Mama, right? Like a lot of Tanzanians just call her Mama because she's that nice and sweet, you know. But I think we need to give a big kudos to Tanzanian democracy and systems also a little bit, because you have seen how a smooth transition of power happened from the late Magufuli to Samia, no noise. Like people just expected this was what's going to happen. And you think about some African nations that have been in a lot of wars over power, like this is something that would never have happened easily, transitioning power to a previous president, to a woman who was vice president. People could have fought, could have done anything. But for Tanzanians, we have always transitioned the power smoothly to the next president, including this unprecedented situation. So I think that's a good example for the entire Africa to look and see that you can literally do that peacefully and look like humans to the face of the world.
Yeah, Jimmy,
yeah, what
Jimmy,
wait
Dr. Mandi, before.
Wait first. There's something before I forget. There's something I also read about is her story when she left a non-profit and went to government, and then she went back to the non-profit because she thought the people in government were too lazy, they were not working. So she's a tough person, but she would, okay.
Yep.
You can.
Oh yes. Yeah, I think you are also touching. I also realize that she's very sensitive and restless. She likes to be active, to be challenged. That's a very good aspect of her. Unlike Magufuli, whom we say he didn't like to be opposed. He didn't like people criticize him. And we are seeing a lady who wants to be challenged. This is a good person. But I also wanted that before we go far, you can easily compare how the succession issue has played out in Tanzania. Again, I mean, with our country, Kenya. Because if you look at Kenya, where we are moving it to, especially with the coming of even in case the PPI thing passes, we are going to have a country where you have certain individuals most likely from very prominent families, very political families, who are going to be up there and possibly perpetuate what people call the others call dynasties. But you see in Tanzania, there is some space for somebody to come from nowhere, from a very humble background, and you make your way. You merit, through experience, through accomplishment, and then you find your way to the top of the party, the CCM party leadership, like the way it has happened to this lady. So this is something that I think the Tanzanians should be proud of.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, there's a question I want to ask about. Dr. Ndimu, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I wanted to emphasize on that and say, actually, all of the first 5 presidents of Tanzania, they all came from very humble backgrounds. Look at Julius Nyerere. He came only, maybe, I didn't know that he was actually from almost the border of Kenya and Tanzania.
Yeah, Butiama.
Butiama in probably 1 hour south of Migori. And Chato is another 2 hours away from Butiama. And both of those came from really very humble backgrounds. And even when you read about the story of all of the presidents, by the way, they are not connected. They were never connected to anybody. So I do completely agree with you. And when you put their names on the map of Tanzania, which is something that I did, it has spread all over. Yeah, they come from northeast, northwest, somewhere in the southeast. I mean, they are spread all over. And that is one thing that I think the foundation that Mwalimu Nyerere put in Tanzania that will forever be there.
Well, I want to deal with you about Mwalimu Nyerere bringing Tanzania together. And Dr. Charles Choti is a historian. He can come for my rescue here. I think Tanzania was where it is because when the Sultan of Zanzibar was ruling mainland, he had appointed those leaders called Akidas. Those Akidas were speaking Kiswahili. So every villager had to know Kiswahili so that he could speak to the local leader. And even when the Germans came, they adopted the same system. That's how I look at it. But in Kenya, the British divided us into reserves. They championed everybody's tribe. And I think that's why we are tribal. So to me, I don't give all accolades to Nyerere. Okay, Nyerere could have done different, but he also he did not bring insight, but he had a good platform that he worked on. I'm not saying we don't give him credit, but I think the credit would have to start before history. Dr. Charles, you may deal with me because you are.
I think we have to accept that countries have unique historical backgrounds. So Tanzania's historical situation, and Kenya may not necessarily be the same, but we must give credit where it is due.
Yeah.
Mwalimu Julius Nyerere, the founding father of Tanzania, laid a very firm foundation for the founding of a nation. Tanzania is a nation, Kenya is not.
Okay.
One, Nyerere made Swahili official language, the national language. And they invested in publication of books in Swahili, teaching Swahili from all the way from primary to university. You know, Kenya, we didn't do that. We didn't give Swahili a priority in our educational system until much later.
Me, I dropped
and then
Swahili
also in government appointments, Nyerere balanced all over. They never used tribe, even in the application forms. Tanzanians don't talk about tribes.
Yep.
I was recently teaching at Mount Kenya University, and so many students from Tanzania, especially from the missionary, Catholic missionaries, the sisters. There were so many of them. Then when you may ask them, then they may tell you the name of the president, John Pombe Magufuli, but ask them which tribe he comes from. Some of them, these are old people in their 40s. Okay. They cannot tell you the tribe of the president. Then they tell you, give us time to want to find out. But ask an elementary kid in Kenya, even pre-unity. What's the tribe of your president? They will tell you before even you complete the question. Because Kenya is so tribalized. And this goes back to Jomo Kenyatta, the way the foundation he gave the country. Most of the things you see in Kenya today, we lead in corruption. We lead in tribalism, in nepotism. In all of this, the foundation is the foundation we were given. Or people were socialized like that. So Nyerere deserves the distinction.
I completely agree, because Nyerere had the opportunity to take Tanzania the Kenyan way. Yeah. He refused. He took it the way he thought best. The other thing I wanted to add about the legacy of the late and the incoming, not to take away the discussions about Kenya, it's Tanzania. While he may have had that high-handedness and the policies that he wanted to push through, he did only within 5 years. I think he will be remembered more than other than Nyerere. Combine all the other four, he'll be remembered, as my own personal opinion, more than the other four combined. I think if you ask me who was the third president, I probably have to go and research.
Yeah, but you remember Magufuli?
Remembered more. In the mold of Julius Nyerere, in the mold of Kwame Nkrumah, who was only president for a few years, or even Patrice Lumumba, who was only president for only 1.5 years. That is the mold of who this gentleman is. He may not have been the most democratic guy, but you cannot doubt his intentions. He meant well. Actually, he was a straight shooter. Remember when he came to Kenya?
Actually, I compare him with Thomas Sankara of Burkina Faso.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a populist. I mean, he loved the people and he wanted to see Tanzanians uplift their lives. Right. Now, there is one unique thing that he canceled a contract where the Chinese had signed a contract with the Kikwete government building Bagamoyo port. Jimmy, can you give us something about that project? I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, that was very interesting. And he did it literally, I think, within the first month of his presidency back in 2015. I think the Chinese, I mean, like what the Chinese are doing across the world, obviously they had succeeded signing a contract with Tanzania under the Kikwete leadership, where they would build a new port at Bagamoyo shore, which is really like 20 kilometers from Dar es Salaam. But the thing is, the terms and the conditions of that agreement were very, very unfriendly to the country. And so when he came in and he read the terms and the conditions, some of the terms and conditions which he publicly said to the media were like, once the Chinese build that port, no Tanzanian authority shall have access to that port. Yep, including any audits, anything, everything will be done from the Chinese government. 2, the minute that port is concluded, Tanzania, the country, shall stop developing any other ports within the country, which means we have the main Dar es Salaam port, which means we would have to stop developing that. We have the Tanga port and many other ports, since we are along the big part of our countries along the ocean. We had to stop developing all those ports so that everything really centers around that port. So he went in, obviously being Magufuli, he doesn't care about the law. I mean, now I'm saying this literally, but he really didn't care about breaking the laws, right? And that's what made him different. So like, I don't care about the consequences of these breaking these agreements. I'm going to break out of this contract, and he did. And obviously, that port didn't happen. So that's I guess that's the background of that port.
Yeah.
And in quick, I want to add that he was also a very keen person in terms of controlling wastage of public resources. The way he reformed the cabinet, reduced the cabinet from around 30 members to 19 members. Yeah. And then also he even panned the official state visits outside, when especially senior government officials making trips to foreign countries. He did his best to ensure that Tanzania's resources went to areas which mean much to the lives of the ordinary people. In a way, he contained this issue of wastage of public resources, which happens everywhere in most countries. For instance, I've seen some countries sending people delegations to countries, to even America here in Washington, D.C. Some years back, I met people here in Kenyans, a delegation of Kenyans who came here one morning in one of the hotels in Washington, D.C. And there was in that meeting they came to attend. It was a big international conference. Actually, these people were supposed to have registered for that meeting before they left the country, but they didn't do that. So when they were here for 1 week, and almost didn't benefit from
they didn't attend.
And also, so these are some of the things I think Magufuli was more keen and they should be remembered for.
Now, on that point of Bagamoyo port, what examples can we run like other regional government like Kenya? Because we also have something like SGR. Do you know that SGR was double the price in other countries that have used to build SGR? And we put our port, Mombasa, as a collateral. In case we fail to pay the debt. That is what the people of Kenya don't know, that SGR is a collateral is the Mombasa port, that they will take the Mombasa port. And this has happened. They have taken Hambantota port in Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
Because the government of Sri Lanka could not be able to pay for the construction of that port. And then when they were taking, they were given 50-mile plot that they are going to control China. So what should we learn, or regional government learn from that?
There's so much we can learn from Magufuli as a person. Being a straightforward, straight shooter. Because remember, even I had to lecture Kenyans when he was on the Kenyan show that he said, Kenyans, you're very good people, but for your tribalism.
Yeah, he told them straight.
For your tribalism, and he was pointing fingers while he's still in the Kenyan soil. It was a straight shooter.
Yeah.
So the other additional thing we can learn from him is, if you're coming in to invest, it has to be people-centered, Tanzanian-centered. The SGR, for example, I'm not sure if you all know also that even those conductors, all those wagons, those who are serving are Chinese.
Chinese, yeah.
Chinese. When they were constructing, even drivers are brought from China. Drivers of trucks, they're brought from China. I mean, it's so painful.
Even the manuals are written in Chinese.
Yeah.
And everything is written in Chinese. It's very painful when you see somebody pending a signature on a contract who is a Kenyan senior official who knows how to read and write. And he appends a contract that really is so much everything to do with China, but nothing to do with Kenya. Yet everything will be done in Kenya. In fact, we sold the soul of Kenya to the Chinese.
Yeah.
So it's very painful. We need to run some of those things, as Chimi said, that he broke the law. I don't think he really broke the law when he trusted that contract, because it was really, it was
a bad contract.
Correct.
I would say.
Another thing that also you may want us to add to that before we leave it is that Magufuli was not, in terms of international, when he was dealing with the foreign countries, he didn't have much regard in terms of extending good international policies, relations with international community. He was very pessimistic in that perspective, but he was more internal oriented. He was more nationalistic. I don't know how this policy is going to benefit or disadvantage the country as we move on, because we are moving into a world which is more globalized, the internet, with the technology. Globalization is taking shape and roots. So what I may want us to look at, and maybe for future discussions, is how is this policy of Magufuli going to be manifested in the incoming leadership, and will it be for the benefit of Tanzania or not? But for the time being, Magufuli did very well, and that's why he's internally popular. I suspect he's a very popular leader in Tanzania, from the way I've seen the Tanzanians responding to the death.
Yeah, you can see the masses which are
you can see that. He was so internally oriented at the expense of the international. We can even say he was an isolationist, because he somehow isolated Tanzania from the international network or connectivity. And was this for the benefit of the country or what?
Jimmy, what can you say about that?
I mean, this guy, for the past 5.5 years, he never set his feet to Europe or any outside countries, like, other than really neighboring countries. Like, he went to Rwanda and Kenya and maybe South Africa. I don't think he went to South Africa, but like really very few countries. He didn't believe in the Western intentions. He always thought the Westerners were there to get us. They were not our friends. That's why he really wanted to protect all the resources from Tanzania, including the gold issue that he dealt with a few years ago. And he said, I am their biggest enemy. That's why there's even conspiracy theories of his death, because really he protected the nation's resources. And like any other previous leaders, if you're protecting your resources, obviously the Westerners are going to be your enemy. But that's a conspiracy theory I don't want to advance. Yep.
Dr. Ndimu, do you have something?
Dr. Mandi, Dr. Ndimu, maybe you can also respond. Do you think in Kenya, is Magufuli popular in Kenya or unpopular?
I think it depends on who you're talking to. But in general, 75% of Kenyans will actually elect him over some of our leaders that we have. If we found a Magufuli who would say no to corruption, I think Kenyans would love that person. If you find a Magufuli who says no to China when they're coming in to squander and take away our resources, I think Kenyans will love him. If you find a Magufuli in Kenya who will just efficiently come in and say, you're not going to waste any money going on for foreign trips just to go there, Kenyans love him. I think if you see that list of how many things, I think it resonates very well with Kenyans. It does with me. Actually, I'm sitting here in Minneapolis. He resonated very well, although I look like I'm sitting close to Chato.
You got us on that.
I think he did very well, and I think if Kenyans will found one Magufuli, only one term in office, I think he did well. And the other thing I wanted to add quickly is he might appear like he was isolating Tanzania from the rest of the world. It's because he knew that unless your house is in order, you cannot negotiate very well. All he needed to do was just clean the house first, make it more strong. So that when you are going out there, you are negotiating from strength. Right now, most African countries are negotiating from the side of weaknesses. That's why Kenyans would sign anything to get anything. So I think he meant well. He wanted to strengthen Tanzania so that we are all powerful. We are all, when you go out there negotiating, you're negotiating from from your strength.
Yeah, I see the topic is very interesting, but you know our time is running. We have 4 minutes. But there is a good question I'm asking about Chama cha Mapinduzi. Magufuli was elected. Actually, that is the time the opposition had a great presence in Tanzania.
Correct.
Do you think the way Magufuli was going was actually moving CCM to end like Kanu ended? I want your take, Mr. George.
This is a very interesting question. One thing I must confess is that I'm not sure how exactly the election, the recent election, presidential election, the final word, whether it was free and fair. I watched it and I felt that it was not, the political campaign field was not levelized. The opposition was extremely disadvantaged. I watched the rallies which were organized and addressed by the opposition leader, Tundu Lissu. They were well attended. People were very passionate. He had a very committed following. But there was no doubt on that. Actually, I even thought that he had a chance. But the way things went, like it backfired, he wasn't covered on the media. So he was improvising means of reaching the people through Facebook, WhatsApp, and many other things. So I felt that the victory which went to CCM, Magufuli himself, was not a very clean one. And I suspect that if the political environment is more open, more democratic, and giving the opposition an equal level ground, the opposition is likely to do very well, especially Tundu, to me, appears to be a very formidable and a promising leader in that country. The opposition have a chance in that country.
And to add on that just quickly is to remind you of Samia going to visit him in Nairobi when he was hospitalized there. When the high-handedness of Magufuli, he is a vice president who came to visit him in Nairobi where he was hospitalized. I kind of found that to be unique in a way. Here is your head of state who is really against the gentleman you're going to visit, and you're the vice president of that person. So I think we are going to have a moderate, if you will, as a president of Tanzania.
It's likely to bring unity in Tanzania.
Yes. So and what I wanted to end with is, with Samia taking over, CCM is going to be there for a long time, because she's going to turn around and bring that sense of humanity again, and that facade of humbleness again to that office.
Okay. Jimmy.
Yeah, I guess these are our last few words, but I think, again, like I started, I'm going to say that I think Magufuli was loved by many, definitely disliked and hated by few. But as I think common Tanzanians really loved him, because he was a man of actions and brought results within 5 years. So a lot of people I've talked to from the villages, they are really mourning his death. They don't think, as of now, they are still in the state of shock, and they don't know if they'll find another person like him. But looks like from this panel, looks like we are very optimistic about our new president, Samia. So we wish her well, and hopefully she can carry on the legacy of Magufuli and carry on his vision.
Well, that was good. And as Abdul Rahim said, politically, victims and beneficiaries remember both. It is the balance between the two, the good and the bad, that determines one's place in the politics of history. So we will leave historians to judge Magufuli, but I think what he has done, he has left the hearts of many Africans, that he has done more good, that the balance will tilt to his side. Thank you, gentlemen. Unless you have any closing remarks, our time is over. Yeah.
we thank you very much for the forum and the Culture TV for giving us the opportunity to reflect on a great African foreign leader.
Thank you.
Thank you. Probably you should also call us sooner, especially after the establishment of Samia's government in place, so that we can also reflect on the same. Yeah.
That's very good. Jimmy?
Thank you.
Yep. Thanks. As always, thanks for always giving us your platform to discuss about African issues. A much needed platform, and we appreciate your effort.